Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boilon here, and welcome back to another video on Marvel Strike Force. Today, we're going to be taking a look at what I believe is to be the best 5 legendary teams that you should be considering and working on or getting ready to work on right now. I think that very soon we're going to start to see, especially the trial legendary characters come back around soon, which is Nova, Black Cat, and Green Goblin. I think it's just a matter of time before one or many of them pop back up again. And also for those of you who may be coming to the levels to being able to start unlocking some of the Scourge events, which I already did a video on, but I want to talk about, which of them are, in my opinion, the most important of the 4. So a lot of this is going to be focused on the Scourge and the Trial Legendary characters, but there might be a few others in here mixed in between. But hopefully by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which of these teams are relevant and the ones that you should be focusing on. So if you're ready to go, everybody, let's boil this down. So coming in at number 5, yes, this is the 5th most important legendary character and team, in my opinion, is going to be Morgan Le Fay and the Darkhold team. The reason for this is a couple of reasons. Actually, for those of you who may be watching already and have already known this or done this, Darkhold and Morgan Le Fay are some of the most used in other trials and Horseman events, honestly, because of their traits. Villain, Mystic, Global is some of them. I believe it's like Villain Mystic, but Villain Mystic broadly, and then Villain Global, Global Mystic, that kind of stuff, shows up in a whole slew of different events. Morgan Le Fay, I believe, I forget which trial it is. I'm pretty sure she's in like 4 nodes, right? Like, so she's like one of the most important legendaries as far as events go. So not just building her for Apocalypse or building the whole team for Apocalypse, but building her to use in other events becomes that much more important because of her traits. I swear, like she's one of the most used in a lot of events that if I didn't have her, not only would it make the other characters, not so much Scarlet Witch because you're not really using her that much, but I would say Agatha and Strange for sure that end up popping up because I think the villain part. But if you didn't have Morgan Le Fay in there, you basically can't use these either because they're a lot worse without having Morgan Le Fay there. And the only alternatives for things like, Global Mystic, I believe it is, would be like Doctor Doom, the other characters, because I don't have the whole list of characters in front of me, but I just want to kind of drive home the point of the importance of Morgan Le Fay. As far as the Darkhold team goes, they were an arena meta team. Infinity Watch was also an arena meta team. Some people are still using Infinity Watch, and I say it like this because I don't think that it's worth mega investment to do so. I feel like where people are using Infinity Watch is in the Crucible defense side of things for the small minor like 5 points of efficiency points because they do have safeguard and immunity on spawn. Kind of same deal with Morgan Le Fay, right? The Darkhold team does have safeguard on spawn. This is really big. The fact that they have this means that they're going to be viable for some time to come. So if Infinity Watch is still viable in things like Crucible defense, then Darkhold is still going to be relevant for Crucible defense for at least another year, because Infinity Watch was a 2020, I want to say a 2021 team, right? Like I don't know how long it's been. I think it was like this May of 2021 without pulling my charts up, and then Darkhold was April or so of 2022, which means that we have at least another year of Darkhold. So beyond just being used in Apocalypse, you're going to see them used for quite some time due to the fact that they're arena meta. Arena meta teams are some of the best teams in the game. Secret Defenders being the other one right now, which are going to be probably more, well, it could be a defense meta too, but they're very good on offense. They're good all around, right? And so these arena meta teams are just hugely viable in all game modes, and that's why Darkhold is so great and why they're still hanging on as number 5 in the top 5 legendary teams. Moving on. Coming in at number 4 is the Gamma team. Why did I put Gamma ahead of Morgan Le Fay? And I think part of that for me is the value of Red Hulk. Red Hulk, just like Morgan Le Fay, actually does come in. I forget. It's either the Black Cat. I think it's the Black Cat Scourge, where you need where you need brawlers for the event. So in terms of using the other legendary, especially the Horseman characters in their events and them being somewhat necessary, I feel like Morgan Le Fay and Red Hulk are some of the best ones for trial events. That being said, they are a war team and not an arena meta team. So you could argue that they may not be as long-term viable necessarily as the Darkhold team, but they are one of the Red Hulk as a singular character. There isn't that many battlefield effects in the game. And I do believe that Red Hulk's battlefield effect is way, way better than Nova's battlefield effect. You can also get to it a lot quicker in general. But the Gamma team has surprised people time and time again. Also, given the fact that while I am not big into war, and there may be some exclusions here, but we'll see. That I believe that you're going to get a lot of value out of this team, whether it's on defense or whether it's on offense, just due to the sheer number of teams that you need for that game mode. As far as Cosmic Crucible goes, I feel like there's a lot of counters for them nowadays. For Crucible, there's new Warrior. Maybe New Avengers can do it too in Crucible, but New Warriors for sure. Sinister Six. I'm not the most adept at Crucible and knowing things off the top of my head, but there's a lot more counters for them than there ever was before. Even in War, there kind of is too. But regardless, the fact that you're still building them for Apocalypse, I wanted to break down the best ones to focus on of those ones, because not all of them, a lot more of them are sliding than others. In my opinion, Unlimited X-Men, who's not going to be on this list, are sliding a lot more than Gamma is. And so I think that also Red Hulk has one of the most accessible Scourges as well, if you've been looking at them, because of the requirements of the traits, which is Asgardian and Wave 1 Avengers. There's characters in there that, while also slide, you could argue that Cap is sliding in there. At least Hulk's in there too, but Cap is sliding because Rebirth's sliding. But you do have the Asgardian characters. You have Beta Ray Bill, Hero Asgardians anyways. You have Beta Ray Bill, and you have Vol. And some of these characters can actually kind of just like single-handedly kind of take it over. But if you use characters like Captain America, like Black Widow, and the Hulk with Vol and Beta Ray Bill, like, you can get through the War Scourge, and that's pretty easy to get through compared to some of the other ones where they have garbage teams garbage characters you don't really want to level. At least some of those, for Red Hulk Scourge, that you do actually want to level. So I think you're gonna get some good value out of Gamma still at this point in time. I actually think that you will get a little bit more value out of them Darkhold. You can argue with that. I mean, it's not, they're still here in the top 5. So at the end of the day, Darkhold and Gamma are still, at this point, I think, still pretty good teams. And I think ones that you should be focusing on building of the 5. So we're not going to be talking about any more of the Scourge characters. Yes, Desi didn't make the list. Yes, Unlimited X-Men didn't make the list. And that's because I think that things are changing a lot in those sort of metas for those teams. But in terms of if you're coming of age in terms of starting to work on Scourge events, I think that Red Hulk and Morgan Le Fay should be the ones that you should be focusing on first. And coming in at number 3, now this one is going to be ironic, because how often did I end up throwing Nova under the bus? This is not here for me to talk about the Nowhere team. Okay, I still do not believe that Nowhere is a worthwhile investment for the entire team. I'm not going to waste too much breath on this. I've said this in a handful of videos already. People who have followed me for a long time will understand my ideology. Nova as a singular character, while I do believe that his osmium is very coveted and is not a priority compared to some of the other characters that I previously listed, and especially my osmium video, which is most likely had come out before this one, I think that Nova as a standalone character still has value. But he is number 3, which means that there's other characters, which you may be able to guess already, that are better than he is in terms of priority. So if you're coming of age on your trial Scourge of I said it again, trial legendary events, Nova is not the most important of the 3. You used to be able to kind of need to have Nova for the Black Cat Scourge, but I said it again, Scourge event, trial event. It's no longer necessary now that Sinister 6 is in the requirement was in the trial requirement for Black Cat, and having Nowhere is not important anymore. But Nova does have some value as a plug-and-play character with his kit. My biggest gripe with Nova, I have to say, and I don't know if I actually mentioned this in other videos, is the fact that his trauma does not actually apply outside of war. Characters like Omega Red, who was actually one of the first characters to have trauma, is still able to apply on his special trauma outside of war. Nova is not. And so that's a little bit of a gripe that I have. His cooldowns are also super long. So if it's not a quick battle, then Nova's not going to really excel very well in that. But it's really disappointing that he can't even, at least as a war legendary character that's, like years past Omega Red, he cannot apply trauma outside of war. I don't understand this, and I don't know why they did that. The the Nova Force itself is okay, but by the time you get to it, it's probably like there's not much value in that anymore. Like you probably don't even need it, honestly, because it's not a turn one ability. And he, a lot of his stuff is just war, 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 war. Like the stun's great, but why not add a trauma on top of that? It would have made him so much better. That being said, if you can get to Nova at some stage, after you do all the important Osmium characters that I listed in my previous video, then I think Nova has some value. But I wouldn't really place him at the top of what you should be doing as far as legendary characters go. This is kind of on the back burner. He is better than Morgan Le Fay and Red Hulk, but as far as a team goes, I believe that they are actually more important than Nova, because not only do you need for Apocalypse, but also you'll get some great value out of them as well. Problem with Nowhere that I have with that team is that if you stick them in Cosmic Crucible with the Nowhere team, you can just take the Eternals and blast them to shreds. And so the biggest value is actually Nova from that team more than anything. They are a great war team, but it's just some of these teams that I'm recommending in here are ones that are going to have more broader value across the game spectrum, in my opinion. So that's Nova. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this. He's still a good legendary character. He's just, I don't think the team with him is all that important. That's all. Coming in at number 2, we have the Secret Defenders. Yes, Secret Defenders is number 2, not number 1. This might be some personal bias. The reason for this one is because the Secret Defenders actually only have 4 good characters. There's Doctor Strange, and I think that I think if there was a solid 5th character that actually made this team even better, then maybe this team would be at number 1. It's kind of weird because I guess you could say that Doctor Strange is the Scarlet Witch of Darkhold, but I don't really like that this is the case. Like, I don't really like that there's kind of like that easy removal character from a team. That being said, because it's an arena meta team, I almost think this was intentional because of the Dark Dimension characters that exist, both when Darkhold was being built and now. There was Dormammu back then, so Dormhold was a thing. And then now we had, I don't know, well, there was APOC Hold, and I guess now we have Scrawled Secret Defenders and things like that. And so part of me thinks that was intentional. But the fact that, I haven't even bothered to build Doctor Strange, and even when I use Secret Defenders in other game modes outside of Arena, I don't tend to use, I would never consider to use Doctor Strange either, because there's so many better plug and play characters that you could fill that slot in if you wanted to. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. That being said, this team is dominant in pretty much every game mode. They're a top 5 team in every game mode, in my opinion, because they're very, very strong. They do a lot of things. Robbie is amazing. His damage is just through the roof. And I actually love some of these characters. Well, so Photon, not so much as a standalone character, but Ghost Rider really stands. Honestly, Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes, I think is better than Black Cat. And this was mentioned actually when I had my collab video with Gangsta KT, and I think this is really true for anyone who his damage output, his bleeds, his just it's insane. Ghost Rider's insane, and so yeah, it should have been it's the Ghost Rider show. Even in Arena, like Black Cat does good things, but at the end of the day, it's like Ghost Rider that's like killing half the field, in my opinion. Over time. They're all farmable now, which is really great. And the Black Cat Scourge has been made significantly easier by the team that we're going to talk about at number 1, which I think is why I put them on a higher pedestal, because of where you can use them and what they can be used for. Secret Defenders, like I said, great in all game modes, but I don't think there's as much necessity to have them for events and things like that compared to the number 1 team, which I'm sure you can all guess. That being said, they're both really amazing. So the top two teams are the ones that, if you're coming of age for your trial legendary events, these are the ones that you should be focusing on. And when the events come back around, you should be putting a lot of your resources into kind of, getting some shards to them. Because as you know, if they disappear in the future, whenever that happens, that we might end up getting the trial legendaries in the same way that the Scourge events are now, which may be harder for new players. So try to get as many shards as you can for these teams anyways, these legendaries, because you never know what's going to happen. Black Hat will be having their 3rd pass come around pretty soon probably, so keep an eye out for that. And coming in at number 1, This is probably no surprise for me coming from Boilon, but it's the Sinister Six, one of the best patches in Marvel Strike Force that I have seen since Infinity Watch. I had a lot of fun in this patch. And so again, maybe it's biased. I have a handful of characters that both that I pulled diamonds on and upgraded diamonds on. Some of them were just lucky pulls. The 2 diamond Mysterio was lucky, but some amazing reworks on this team, both in the form of Mysterio and Vulture. Even Electros wasn't that bad for War. I did these upgrades because I had a lot of excess gear. Characters like Craven, absolutely amazing everywhere. Some really stellar Dark Dimension 6 characters, way better than the Secret Defenders. And so it's not just for their game mode why I recommend this team and this instance, the legendary Green Goblin Classic, but because of they just walk over almost everything and places that you can use them, with the exception of Arena. However, some people are actually using Green Goblin Classic in Arena too. So there is some value here with not only the legendaries, plural, with Doc Ock. There's a 2-for-1 deal here. Doc Ock has been made significantly easier to get since they dropped the requirements to unlock Doc Ock. I honestly forget what it is now. They changed it from X-Force to a more broader spectrum, which is great as well. And so many good characters that are available, and this team is great. So let's just break it down. This is a Crucible team, at least in the form of the Superior Six, which is going to be Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Green Goblin Classic, Doc Ock, Craven, Lizard, and Spider Slayer. However, if you're being a little bit cheap like me, you can also just use Mysterio and Vulture on an offense perspective and still get an insane amount of value for them. Vulture and Mysterio, Vulture specifically, is actually really great in Dark Dimension 6. I would actually recommend Mysterio once G18's kind of loosen up a little bit, because I think Mysterio is a really great character. I think the fact that he can put out blinds and ability block on the entire team with 2 Superior 6 members, which typically would be Doc Ock and probably Craven, to be honest, because I think Craven's really amazing too. Just a great spread of origins too. Why that you can build this team fairly easily. There's a little bit of extra tech. Vulture's pretty cheap to build though. And so there is a little bit more tech than others, but there are other ones as well. Lizard being bio, Craven being skill, and actually there's no mystic or mutant. So it's those 3, but there's still a spread of that versus just like being compact into one, which some of them are. Love this team. I can't say anything more about this. This should be, in my opinion, your number 1 priority. Because they're a pretty new team. They're like one or two patches, one patch ago or two now at this point, and just some amazing stellar characters, useful in Dark Dimension, useful in War, useful in Cosmic Crucible, and like I said, a little bit in Arena. And actually, you can use these characters in raids. Believe it or not, they are actually viable all the way up to Incursion First Strike. You might even be able to use them up as a cleanup if you need to in Incursion 2, because a lot of them are tech. Doc Ock, Mysterio, Vulture, Green Goblin Classic. There's 4 of them, and then you can throw in Kang as a 5th member. And that's actually a very solid set of tech characters that you can use in Incursion Raid, depending on where you're at, whether it's Incursion 1, Incursion First Strike, so on, that you'll actually get some value. Now, it's not better than Pegasus, but you'll still get some additional value that way if you actually need them. Great team to build. Number 1 priority, in my opinion. And then next is Secret Defender. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this list. This is mainly for players who, might be coming up the way, might be not knowing, which legendary teams to kind of focus on, and especially between the Scourges and the Trial Legendaries, kind of which ones are more important than others, in my opinion. So that's the end of my video, everyone. And until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.